comment,
and subscribe for more content.
Where's the notification bell?
It's to the right of you.
Oh.
Ooh, what's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast, the second part of our fandom-related podcast, more specifically titled You're a Wizard, the Harry Potter podcast, which, yes, this podcast has been divided into two parts. And if you have not seen part one yet, that has myself and my special guest co-host Robbie D discuss about the Philosopher/Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and Prisoner of Azkaban with some of the Funko Pops involved in those movies/books. Definitely go check out that podcast before continuing on with this podcast. But in this second part of the podcast, we will be discussing about the Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and the Deathly Hallows, followed by what Funko Pops that we want to see next in the Harry Potter lineup as a whole. So let's move on and start this podcast off with us discussing about the Goblet of Fire. Next up, we have ourselves the Goblet of Fire, which the book was released July 8th, 2000, with the movie releasing November 18th, 2005, with a budget of $150 million, box office at $896.7 million, making a profit of $746.7 million. Harry's fourth year at Hogwarts is about to start, and he is enjoying the summer vacation with his friends. They get the tickets to the Quidditch World Cup final, but after the match is over, people dressed like Lord Voldemort's Death Eater set a fire to all of the visitors' tents, coupled with the appearance of Voldemort's symbol, the Dark Mark, in the sky, which causes a frenzy across the magical community. That same year, Hogwarts is hosting the Triwizard Tournament, a magical tournament between three well-known schools of magic, Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang. The contestants have to be above the age of 17 and are chosen by a magical object called the Goblet of Fire. On the night of selection, however, the goblet spews out 4 names instead of the usual 3, with Harry unwittingly being selected as the 4th champion. Since the magic cannot be reversed, Harry is forced to go with it and brave 3 exceedingly difficult tasks, which I, for some reason, didn't write anything down. So what was your thoughts on Goblet of Fire?
Goblet of Fire overall was a really good movie. Obviously, it started off a little bit dark and everything after the whole World Cup and Death Eater setting ablaze to obviously everyone's tents and everything. And then we move on, obviously, later on. It turned out to be a pretty good movie with the tournament and everything. Obviously, I felt like the Triwizard Tournament was kind of one of my more favorite parts of the movie, actually. Different challenges that they had for them. It was pretty cool.
All right, so the 10 pops we're talking about, first off, the Fred, George, and Ginny Weasley 3-pack that was exclusive for Emerald City Comic Con 2019, shared with Barnes & Noble. These are obviously Ron's brothers and sister. They are attending the Quidditch World Cup with the face paint of the team that they are cheering for. Mad-Eye Moody, which is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher and a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Draco Malfoy with the spider. Obviously, we have already mentioned about Draco and how he's the son of Lucius Malfoy and is in the Slytherin house. And this is in the scene where Mad-Eye Moody does the lesson. He uses the spider and then he ends up putting it on Malfoy's face. The Victor Crumb and Hermione Granger 2-pack exclusive to Barnes & Noble. Victor Crumb is a student at Durmstrang Institute and is one of the competitors in the Goblet of Fire. And Hermione Granger is Victor's date when they are at the U-Ball dance. Fleur Delacour, which was a Emerald City Comic Con 2020, shared with both Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, a student of the Beauxbatons Academy of Magic and is one of the competitors in the Goblet of Fire. Cedric Diggory in the Triwizard Tournament outfit, which was a Hot Topic exclusive, a student at Hogwarts as a member of the Hufflepuff House and is one of the competitors of the Goblet of Fire, unfortunately passes away during the movie. Rita Skeeter, which is a San Diego Comic Con 2019, shared with Barnes & Noble exclusive. She is a journalist for the Daily Prophet that you see throughout the movie. Harry Potter with the Golden Egg, which is a Target Target exclusive, which this was the scene where one of the challenges that Harry Potter does in the Goblet of Fire is to capture the golden egg without getting hurt by the dragon that is essentially blowing the fire at him during this challenge. Ron Weasley with the Yule Ball outfit, which was one of those funny scenes because everyone has these cool outfits. And then Ron Weasley is wearing this really old outfit that's been brought down by his predecessors and that he's kind of forced to wear. And last but not least, a perfect way to end off Goblet of Fire pops is the Harry versus Lord Voldemort pop movie moments. This is technically where you actually see Voldemort for the first time in his actual true form self instead of using people as Horcruxes. This is Harry and Voldemort's first ever encounter that takes place in a graveyard.
All right, so we will start off with the Jenny, Fred, and George 3-pack. Obviously, really well done. This is, like you mentioned, the fact that they're attending the World Cup game for Quidditch, and they're all cheering for Team Ireland. I think they were going up against like England or something. I can't remember exactly what team, but yeah, these translated really well into Funko Pop form. There was actually a like Harry Potter Quidditch game for the PlayStation 2 back in the day that I played, and you were able to play as like the World Cup teams as well, which I found was pretty cool. So there's a fun fact about that. There's not much more I can say. I do like the detail, obviously, with the face paint of Fred, with obviously like his hat and obviously like the little clover. Mad-Eye Moody. Obviously, they put a lot of attention and detail into this one, obviously, with his like eye patch thing, his scars on his face, the fact that obviously he has his cane, and then obviously in his other hand he has a wand. Really great pop overall, and one of those peculiar characters in the movie. And moving on to the Draco Malfoy pop, yes, you said this was the scene where obviously like they were doing this like lesson with the spider and everything, and then like Draco was saying something, and then like, oh, like you think you're funny and stuff like that. How about this? And then like he flings the spider, and everyone's laughing at Draco afterwards, and Draco's freaking out. I think this translated really well into a Funko Pop form. Draco's one of those bullies throughout the series, not only to Harry but to Hermione and Ron as well. I think he got his just due, or like his justice here in this scene at least. Really well done. The Hermione and Victor Crumb 2-pack. Obviously, this translates really well as well because this scene is obviously they're at the Yule Ball, which is a dance and kind of like a celebration of all the three schools, so to speak, coming together. You know, Hermione looks really well in this Funko Pop form for, and Victor Crumb as well. Fleur Delacour, also really well done pop. Cedric Diggory, yes, unfortunately, dies due to Lord Voldemort because at the ending of the Triwizard tournament, they have to go through this maze, and both Harry and Cedric come to the obviously Triwizard Cup, and they both actually end up grabbing at the same time. It ends up being a port key, which takes them to the grave or the cemetery rather. Voldemort and his Death Eaters, and of course Peter Pettigrew is there and says, "Oh, look, a second boy! Like we gotta kill him! Like he's not anything to do with Harry and all that, but like he ends up dying, which is very sad. He has to take Cedric's body back with him, so he has to go back to the Triwizard Cup, which is a portkey back to obviously like the exit of the tournament anyways, the maze rather too. And overall this pop looks like Cedric should. When he was competing in the tournament, he's got his yellow and black like shirt on that he was wearing. I mean, kind of just a generic pop overall. So I suppose, other than the fact, he's holding a wand, which obviously wizards do throughout the movie. So I think Cedric was kind of one of my favorite characters throughout the movie, throughout the tournament, even kind of helping out Harry, because obviously they're both from Hogwarts. So obviously they kind of want to help each other out. Not much more I can say on this. Well done, Funko, for making this pop. Rita Skeeter, the journalist. Yeah, like she was trying to kind of get all the scoops and everything from Harry or like the other students that were participating in the tournament, like Victor and Fleur Delacour and Cedric and all that. And of course, obviously also wanted to make it out the fact that like obviously Harry and Hermione have this like love interest, even though they kind of didn't, like they were just friends and everything. Yeah, Rita obviously played kind of a huge role throughout the tournament, but other than that, like this pop obviously translated really well though. You can tell it is Rita Skeeter, and she's got those like glasses that are kind of like pushed down a little bit because like she's really trying to talk to you, but she's like really in your face about everything and like wanting to get this scoop on what's going on. So overall, she's holding like her little like quill, or I guess like a pen thing that she uses to write. Really nice looking pop. Harry holding the golden egg, and this pop obviously, like you mentioned earlier, was part of the scene where he's got to try and stay away from the dragon, try to take the egg from the dragon and kind of like get it out of there as quick as possible. This is a really nice looking pop. I like the detail with his like attire that he's got on with like the Hogwarts, not the Hogwarts, but the Gryffindor colors, or like the red and the black. This all translated really well. Really good detail, especially like the egg, the golden egg. Ron wearing the Yule Ball attire. Yeah, he basically like goes and he's complaining. He's like, "Oh, I look like my old Aunt Tessie, and it smells like my old Aunt Tessie." I love that scene too, where he's just kind of like upset that he has to wear like this like really baggy old like set clothing that, you know, obviously like you said, his predecessors were wearing and stuff like that, and everyone else is wearing these like nice looking clothing and well dressed and everything. And yeah, I think this definitely translated well into a Funko Pop as well. And finally, moving on to the Harry versus Voldemort movie moments, where obviously they're both casting their spells. Voldemort's trying to cast the Avada Kedavra spell to kill Harry, I'm pretty sure. So this whole movie moments pop, I absolutely love, because you can just see like the two casting spells at each other and everything. This is probably my favorite pop of all the Harry Potter pops out there. I'd say, or at least it's in my top 5 maybe of the Harry Potter Funko Pops. Well done, Funko.
Now we are on The Order of the Phoenix, which the book was released June 27th, 2003. The movie was released July 11th, 2007, with a budget of $150 to $200 million, with the box office at $942.2 million, giving it a profit of approximately $742.2 to $792.2 million. After returning to Hogwarts to begin his 5th year, Harry Potter discovers that much of the wizarding world, including the Ministry of Magic, is in denial about Lord Voldemort's return. The Order of the Phoenix, a group sworn against Voldemort, is using a vast array of wizards and witches' magical abilities to combat Voldemort. Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic, suspects that Dumbledore is using these claims of the Dark Lord's return as a means to overthrow Fudge as minister. In relation, a new defense against the dark arts teacher is appointed by the ministry in order to keep an eye on Hogwarts. This new teacher, Professor Dolores Umbridge, implies strict new teachings and rules, forcing a group of students under the tutelage of Harry to form a club by the name of Dumbledore's Army. Order of the Phoenix is my absolute favorite Harry Potter that has been done. This is so amazing. There's so much of an up and down roller coaster as terms to like the whole movie. First, Harry is having his altercation with his cousin and then saves him from the Dementor. He's in that kind of courtroom setting and you think he's getting expelled. And then you got to deal with Umbridge, and then they end up having that sweet wizard battle that's at the Ministry of Magic. That's just, it's overall great. It gets you really up on your seat, this movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It was a really great movie. Would I say it was my favorite movie? Pretty darn close to it, I'd say. I don't know what could top it. I mean, maybe Deathly Hallows, which we're going to be talking about later. But yeah, I'd say that Order of the Phoenix is pretty up there for favorite movies. We got a nice list to talk about for Funko Pops that we will mention very shortly. So let's talk about them pops.
So the pops we have listed down, there are 10 pops. We got ourselves first Nymphadora Tonks, which was an Emerald City Comic Con 2020 shared with Hot Topic exclusive. Former student at Hogwarts under the Hufflepuff House, she became an Auror under Mad Eye Moody and joined the Order of the Phoenix. OG Sirius Black pop, which obviously Harry Potter's godfather and is a huge crucial part of this movie. Dolores Umbridge, a member of the Ministry of Magic who becomes the defense against the dark arts teacher and later the High Inquisitor and headmistress of Hogwarts. Luna Lovegood, a student at Hogwarts under the Ravenclaw House and would join Dumbledore's army led by Harry Potter. Filch with Mrs. Norris, which was a New York Comic Con 2019 shared with Barnes & Noble exclusive, a caretaker at Hogwarts throughout the movies, but is pretty much by the side of Dolores Umbridge throughout her time at Hogwarts during this movie. The Sirius Black as Dog, which there was a common version and a flocked version that was exclusive to Hot Topic in a Pop and Tea bundle. Harry Potter with the Prophecy, which obviously this is where Harry Potter goes to the Ministry of Magic and he finds the prophecy. Bellatrix Lestrange, who is a Death Eater and was sent to Azkaban but managed to escape after the big breakout. She was also the one responsible for the death of Sirius Black. Lucius Malfoy with the Death Eater mask, which was a Hot Topic exclusive, which you do see him briefly wearing in this movie. And then last but not least, the OG Lord Voldemort pop, which obviously you do see him in a brief, I guess, wizard battle against Dumbledore near the end of the Order of the Phoenix.
All right, so let's talk about these Order of the Phoenix pops real quickly here. Nymphadora Tonks looks really nice, very well detailed. Her purple ish hair that she's got, her outfit on. Everything looks really well done with this pop. Sirius Black, not much to talk about. Obviously, like you mentioned, plays a huge role in Harry's life, not only as his godfather, but the fact that he plays a huge role in this movie, protecting Harry. Dolores Umbridge, I feel that this would be a pop that people would buy just so that they can destroy it or burn it or whatever. Not a huge fan of this character overall, but I mean, not a lot of people are. A lot of people hate Umbridge. So it makes sense for this to be one of those pops that, like I said, mentioned, I feel like people would buy just to burn it or destroy it. Luna Lovegood, they did pretty good detail with giving her some earrings. On the box, obviously, you can see like a little bit of like a pink like blush to her cheek, which obviously, if you kind of zoom in on this photo of her, you can see a little bit of pink on her cheeks. So there is some blush there. So that's some pretty good detail. Overall, this character looks really nice. And Luna's one of those eccentric characters. So, I mean, yeah, she plays a decent role throughout the series. Moving on to Filch and Mrs. Norris. This translated well into Funko Pop form. Makes sense that they put these two together as like a pop and kind of buddy kind of sort of deal in a way, but the buddy is more so in Filch's hands rather, like Norris's. So pretty nicely well done by Funko. Moving on to Sirius Black as the dog. They did really well with this one as well. Obviously, it's just looks like a dog, but it has obviously like those like yellowish kind of cream colored eyes instead of obviously normal pop eyes, because it's kind of hard to put black eyes on top of a black sculpt and like body and everything. So I see why they went this route instead. So it looks really well as a pop, but not much more I could say on that. Moving on to the Harry Potter with Prophecy, which is actually a pop that you gifted me one year, which is a really nice pop. Obviously, he's wearing like his jeans and like sweater and everything, and his attire looks really nice. He has his wand out because he's trying to kind of avoid the Death Eaters and trying to battle them off. And he has this prophecy in his hand, which obviously, we find out later on, obviously, like one life must end while the other one also must live. But at the same time, it's like both of them, which I'm referring to Harry and Voldemort, both kind of have to die, but Harry has the resurrection stone, the Philosopher's Stone, to like kind of revive him, so to speak, which we find out later on throughout the series. But overall, really nice pop. Well done by Funko. Moving on to Bellatrix Lestrange. Now, she's one of those crazy, like, bad characters, and by bad, I mean like she's a bad person in the series, but overall, I mean like she's translates well into Funko Pop form. Funko paid really good attention to detail with like the curly hair, her outfit. There's like a ring on her finger, like the wand that she has in her hand and everything. And even I think I'm looking at the nails and they seem to be painted. Like Funko did a really good job on this Bellatrix pop. And like I have to admit, like Bellatrix seems to be one of my like favorite bad characters throughout the series. Really well done on this Funko Pop, like bar none. Moving on to Lucius Malfoy with the Death Eater mask. This is obviously from the scene where Harry and his gang is, fighting off the Death Eaters while trying to get his prophecy. Really well done, pretty nicely detailed, but not a whole lot. I like this pop over the one we talked about earlier, though, with just how detailed the mask is and everything, his outfit. And then finally, we will talk about the OG Lord Voldemort pop. Not much to discuss. This is a nice looking pop, but I do have a favorite Lord Voldemort pop, which I'll discuss later on in the podcast.
I do want to mention before we move on to the Half-Blood Prince that it's funny you mentioned about people wanting to buy Dolores Umbridge because they want to buy it and burn it. I was definitely one of those people that wanted to do that when I seen this in stores, since when I first started collecting pops, Harry Potter was just starting out as a set. So I seen Dolores Umbridge. I'm like, do I buy it because I want to burn it? But I ended up not buying it because why would you want to really burn a Funko Pop after you just paid the $15 Canadian is for a Funko Pop? Or at least at that time, it was actually like 12 since they've gone up since then. Now moving on to the Half-Blood Prince, which the book was released July 16th, 2005. The movie was released July 15th, 2009, with a budget of $250 million. The box office at $934.5 million, and the profit for that was $684.5 million. During Harry Potter's 6th year at Hogwarts, he finds a book that once belonged to the mysterious Half-Blood Prince that earns him the respect of his new potions professor, Horace Slughorn. In addition, Dumbledore must prepare Harry for the ultimate final confrontation by finding out the secret behind Voldemort's power. Meanwhile, a hidden enemy awaits in the shadows to carry out a mission given to him by the Dark Lord. Half-Blood Prince was probably my least favorite Harry Potter movie, and that's mainly because it felt like they only had a certain amount of time to jam so much info into one movie, and that there was a lot of info actually taking out compared from the book to the movie.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Definitely probably one of the least favorites as well for me. I mean, it was an okay movie overall. We found out like later on who the Half-Blood Prince was, which we will talk about when we discuss the pops for this set. Honestly, yeah, I feel like there were, better movies throughout the series than this one overall.
So the pops we're going to discuss about, which there are only 5 for this one and Deathly Hallows, since Funko didn't really make any pops for these movies compared to the other 5 movies. We got ourselves first Severus Snape, which throughout the movie series, as we see him, he's been a potions master, head of the Slytherin house, defense against the dark arts teacher, and headmaster of Hogwarts, and he is responsible for the death of Albus Dumbledore in this movie. We got ourselves the Luna Lovegood with glasses, which was the San Diego Comic-Con 2017 shared with Hot Topic exclusive. Luna was wearing a pair of Spectra specs as seen on the train ride at the beginning of the movie. We also have the Luna Lovegood with the lion hat as seen in this movie, and I believe the Order of the Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. We got Seamus Finnegan, which was a Books A Million exclusive, which Seamus was a student at Hogwarts who had a tendency of making explosions while trying new spells, which was seen in The Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and The Half-Blood Prince, which is why we're also mentioning it here, since it has been seen in multiple movies. And last but not least, we have ourselves the Albus Dumbledore with Hogwarts Pop Town, which, of course, Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts throughout the movie series, and unfortunately passes away in this movie/book.
All right, so starting right off with the Severus Snape pop. Obviously, this translates well into Funko Pop form. This looks like Snape, and yeah, he's played many roles throughout the series, like you mentioned. Overall, this is a really nice looking pop, and it's very unfortunate that obviously he does pass away in the series. But overall, I mean, he was one of the protagonists, I'm pretty sure, or no, sorry, antagonists rather, because he was always somewhat a thorn with Ron Weasley's side, and I don't know, he just seemed like he was out to get like Harry, even though he was later on kind of protecting Harry in some sorts of ways, because he liked Harry's mom back when they were kids and going to school together. Anyways, regardless, this pop looks pretty well done, in my opinion. Moving on to Luna with the glasses. This kind of is a scene where after Harry gets kicked by Draco Malfoy and like the invisibility cloak is draped over him, so that like pretty much no one knows where he is, so to speak. Luna actually like kind of sees like an aura or something over Harry, which kind of points Harry out to Luna so that she finds him on the train. Overall, this pop looks really nicely detailed, and she has like I think it's the Quibbler or whatever in her hands, because she was so used to like reading those or whatever. So nice attention to detail there. But we'll talk about my more favorite Luna pop, and that is the one with the lion hat on. I can't exactly remember the scene where this is from. I know obviously it is in the movie. I think this might be like where they had just met Luna's dad, or maybe like they were out somewhere. But yeah, this is a very nicely detailed pop, and I like this one over the one with the glasses. Moving on to Seamus Finnegan, he's one of my favorite comedy characters throughout the series of, him trying to, make certain explosions and blow things up and everything. And, he looks very detailed with like the ashy face, obviously because of the explosions. And other than that, he's just standing there holding his wand, but really nice that they added Seamus into the Harry Potter lineup. And finally, probably my favorite Harry Potter pop is the Pop Towns with Dumbledore and the Hogwarts Castle. This castle looks very, very detailed. I'm glad that they made this into a Funko Pop. This whole Pop Towns with Dumbledore. Even Dumbledore looks pretty good in Funko Pop form here. Honestly, bar none, probably, like I said, my favorite Funko Pop out of this whole entire Harry Potter lineup. So well done, Funko.
And last but not least, for the Harry Potter series, we have the Deathly Hallows, which the book was released July 14th, 2007, with the movies, because this was a 2-part movie. Part 1 was released November 19th, 2010, and Part 2 was released July 15th, 2011, with a budget of $250 million throughout both of the movies, so approximately $125 million for each of the movies. For the first movie, the box office was $977 million, making a profit of $852 million if you consider the 125 for the one movie. And part two made a box office of $1.342 billion with a profit of $1.217 billion. And then altogether with both movies was a box office of $2.319 billion, making a profit of $2.069 billion. While the villainous Lord Voldemort begins taking over the Ministry of Magic, Harry, Ron, and Hermione must race against time to finish Dumbledore's quest to find and destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes in order to stop the Dark Lord once and for all. On their own out in the world, the trio must rely upon one another as evil forces threaten to tear them apart. Will they succeed? Will Voldemort finally be stopped? What is the mystery behind the Deathly Hallows? So for the movies, part one was a little meh because I think it's that feeling of knowing that it's going to end on a cliffhanger because it's being divided into two parts. But this made sense because of the fact that with Half-Blood Prince, which should have been a two-part movie, there was so much info. And if you've seen the Deathly Hallows book in stores, that is a thick book. So for them to have only done that in one part would have just been really bad. And they should have done it with Half-Blood Prince. So they made it into two parts. And this was actually kind of the catalyst of movies nowadays making two parts because of money profits. Because as I read for the statistics there for the box office, Deathly Hallows Part 2 becoming the highest grossing Harry Potter film of all time, reaching over $1.3 billion with only a budget of essentially 125 if you're dividing it into two parts, which, yeah, pretty crazy. But yeah, Part 2 was definitely great, but I don't consider it the best Harry Potter film like a lot of people considering. I know I've seen a lot of lists and a lot of people's videos ranking all the Harry Potter films, and they consider the second part of Deathly Hallows as the best, but I don't know. There's something about the ones I mentioned earlier that I feel like are a bit better than part two of Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Part one definitely felt obviously meh, due to the fact that we all knew, like you said, it was going to leave us on a cliffhanger. But putting all of the story together into the first part and then knowing or expecting what to come in the second part, it made sense. Overall, though, like you mentioned, there is argument whether or not part two of Deathly Hallows being the best out of the whole franchise or not. It's up there in my top two, at least. That's all I gotta say. There are some decent pops we will talk about. There are 5 pops we are going to be talking about. So, as you mentioned, let's get into that.
All right, so we got 5 pops, like I mentioned, with Half-Blood Princess, since there wasn't that many for Deathly Hallows. First off, we got ourselves the Lord Voldemort with Nagini pop, which, of course, you actually get to see Nagini in human form in the prequels of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but this is her in the snake form. Then we got ourselves the Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger on Gringotts Dragon pop rides, which this is the scene where Harry, Ron, and Hermione escape the bank on a dragon after getting one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. We got Minerva McGonagall, who is seen throughout the entire series, but we thought we would save her here for Deathly Hallows since she's in every movie, which she is the head girl of Hogwarts and the head of the Gryffindor house. We got Dobby snapping his fingers, which obviously this would be a part of when Dobby helps Harry, Ron, and Hermione escape. I believe it is Draco and Lucius's household. I can't exactly remember for some reason. But unfortunately, Dobby was killed when they were in mid-snap by Bellatrix's silver knife that penetrated him during that escape. And last but not least, we have ourselves the Harry Potter with 2 wands pop that was a Barnes & Noble exclusive. And this is him after his battle with Voldemort, and Voldemort disintegrates and passes away. When Harry is holding his wand and the wand that Voldemort obtains during part 1 of Deathly Hallows, which is Dumbledore's wand, also known as the Elder's Wand, which is the most powerful wand in the entire magical universe.
All right, so starting right off with probably my favorite Lord Voldemort pop, and that is obviously Lord Voldemort with Nagini. Nagini playing a huge role, not only in Voldemort's life, but throughout the series as well. Really well done. I absolutely love this Funko Pop. Pretty nicely detailed. Moving on to the Harry, Ron, and Hermione riding the Gringotts Dragon. I'm absolutely amazed that they were able to fit 3 of these characters on top of the Gringotts Dragon and make it into a pop rides. I think this is very well translated, honestly, and I absolutely love it. Moving on to Minerva McGonagall, as you said, head girl of Hogwarts, as well as the head of the Gryffindor house. Yeah, this translated well into a Funko Pop form. This looks like McGonagall as she would throughout the movie. Really well done on Funko's behalf. Next, we have Dobby snapping his fingers. I was wondering, like, what was like in between Dobby's fingers there, but that is just like obviously the spell happening as he snaps his fingers. And unfortunately, we all know Dobby like dies after Bellatrix throws her knife or dagger, whatever it is, through the little teleportation portal before it closes. Very sad moment in the movie. Otherwise, this pop looks really nice. It just looks pretty much like a Dobby pop would or should, and just that added effect of the magic from snapping his fingers. And then finally, Harry Potter with both his wand and the Elder Wand that he obtains, as you mentioned, after defeating Voldemort. Voldemort disintegrates and Harry disarms Voldemort, and the wand becomes his. Really greatly done overall, and there's not a lot I'm going to say about this pop. Well done on Funko's behalf.
All right, so now we are going to move on to Funko Pops we want to see next in the Harry Potter lineup, which I will admit for mine, I have 7 pops listed, and that is one for every book that has been made, which definitely makes sense. I don't know what Robbie D will have for what he has listed. We might have some that are the same. We might not have the same. Who knows? So kicking off, what would be the pop I chose for the Philosopher's Stone, which is a 6-inch fluffy, which is the 3-headed dog that I guess is also owned by Hagrid at one point, which I'm surprised they haven't made that yet, especially with last year being the 20th anniversary of the Philosopher's Stone movie, and they made a huge wave. I'm surprised it didn't even end up being like a Comic-Con exclusive, which it could be down the line, especially with very soon, as of this recording, supposed to be San Diego Comic-Con 2022 announcements, which should have also been something we mentioned at the beginning, is that if there was San Diego Comic-Con pops involved with Harry Potter, those won't be mentioned on this podcast. Next up for what would be the Chamber of Secrets, and I feel this pop is going to end up being made this year for it being the 20th anniversary of the Chamber of Secrets movie, is a pop rides of Ron Weasley with the flying car. I think that only makes sense for at least the original cover of the book. From what I remember, it is Ron driving the car, which that's how I remember it, and is a memorable scene where Ron is getting Harry out of the household there of the Dursleys, and they use the flying car to essentially rip open the window, and then he flies off in there. And it was a really cool scene, and I would like to see how it end up translated into Funko Pop form. For the Prisoner of Azkaban, I have a 6-inch Marge Dursley, which would be very funny for a Funko Pop, especially that's obviously when she is in like a huge puffy ball from Harry's spell, and she's kind of flying off in the air there. And then Vernon's trying to grab her as she's flying away, which was a very funny scene to kick off Prisoner of Azkaban, one of my favorite Harry Potters. And I think it would translate very well. Obviously, it has to be a 6-inch because of her big puffy ball form, which it would be very funny to kind of see that actually happen in the near future. For the Goblet of Fire, I had put Harry Potter with his parents in a 3-pack. We already got the Triwizard Harry Potter, a couple of them actually for Goblet of Fire, one with the Voldemort movie moments we discussed about in the pod. But it would be cool to kind of make Harry's parents into Funko Pop form, because you do see them in the ghost form during that scene, which is kind of what I'm basing it off of, instead of seeing them in like a picture form in the movie moments we discuss about for Philosopher's Stone. For Order of the Phoenix, I have a 10-inch Grop, or Groppy as Hagrid calls him, because that is Hagrid's brother. That is just completely massive. And I put a 10-inch because obviously we have the Hagrid pop already, or the 2 Hagrid pops, actually 3, because the Leaky Cauldron Deluxe that we didn't get to discuss about. He's already a 6-inch form, and then you have normal characters like Harry Potter and Ron Weasley and Hermione that are 4-inch pops. So it makes sense for a huge character like Groppy to be much bigger than all of those characters put together, making it a 10-inch form. Would be crazy if they made it an 18-inch form. For the Half-Blood Prince, there wasn't really many options, but I went with Draco Malfoy in the black suit. You see him wearing the black suit when he joins the Death Eaters alongside his dad and Bellatrix, and I think it'd be really cool for just a simplistic Draco Malfoy pop. We already have a couple, like the spider one we mentioned earlier, and then there's obviously the regular one, and him in the Quidditch World, or the Quidditch Cup, or just the Quidditch attire overall they've made also. So it'd be really cool to have just a simplistic Draco Malfoy pop. And last but not least, for the Deathly Hallows, I have a movie moments of Neville killing Nagini with the sword of Gryffindor. This would be really cool. This was a huge character development on Neville as terms to the Harry Potter series, because we know that he is a little bit shy there. And we only have two versions of Neville to begin with. We have Neville with the toad Trevor, and then we have the monster book one that we discussed about earlier on in the podcast. And so it'd be really cool to make more movie moments, and especially with characters that we barely get pops of, unlike Harry, Ron, and Hermione that have a ton of pops already, and we don't really need to see any more, to be honest.
All right. So luckily enough, none of the stuff that I have written down on my list corresponds with yours. So let's get started with my list of pops I'd like to see Funko make next for the Harry Potter line. We've seen pops of like Ron with Scabbers or Neville with Trevor the Toad, but we haven't seen pops of, just animals like Crookshanks or Scabbers or even Trevor the Toad. So those three are on my list for like pop pets of the Harry Potter line, technically. Those would probably translate pretty well into Funko Pop form. But moving on to the next thing I have written down is the dragon guarding the egg from the Goblet of Fire movie through the Triwizard Tournament. That challenge where they have to grab the egg from the dragon, maybe have like the Pop Deluxe of the dragon with like the tail wrapped around the egg or something. Who knows how Funko could do it, but I'm sure that would be a nice Funko Pop to see. Next on my list could be singular pops or could be a 2-pack. It would make more sense if it was a 2-pack, would be Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. I'm not sure if we have ever seen a Mr. and Mrs. Weasley pop. From what I've seen of all the pops listed on the Funko app, there is 154, I'm pretty sure, in total that I seen last night. So those were not a part of them. So it would be nice to see a Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. And finally, one you might not think that I would mention, but it is probably one of Harry's biggest fans, and that is Colin Creevey with, it could be with the camera or it could just be a pop of Colin himself. Would be nice to see. Colin is one of those interesting characters. Like I mentioned, a big fan of Harry Potter. Would be nice to see if Funko made him into a Funko Pop.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this week's edition of a Funko Popcast. If you enjoyed our fandom-related podcast on Harry Potter, make sure you smash that like button. Comment in the comment section below and let us know what was your favorite Harry Potter pop that Funko has made thus far, even if it's a pop that we unfortunately didn't get to discuss about on this podcast. Press the subscribe button for more content like this podcast and any other videos we do on this channel in the future, and press the little bell beside it to be notified of when that future content gets released. And if you guys haven't yet, follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at a Funko Popcast. It'll be listed in the description below. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to this week's edition of a Funko Popcast, and we hope to see you guys next week on a Funko Popcast. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Keep on popping.